everyone, Nathan here at Glass for Classics. Now we're going to run through today, for those of you who have got the 1947 to 1954 Australian built Chevy, Maple Leaf and GMC pickup trucks, what is required for changing out the quarter vent glass, to putting in new rubbers, etc. Now the Australian built Chevy pickups are different to their American cousins. They look similar, but the glass, the frames, the rubbers, the locks, everything are completely unique to the Australian ones, so do not use anything American, it won't fit. Now what we're going to do, you can see down here, we've got one that we've finished. It's got the new rubbers and everything already fitted. The customers opted to use the original glass, but they have re-chromed the frame, so everything is now assembled and ready to finish. What we're going to do is we're going to start. Here's our original one that we're going to just do as a sample for pulling apart. A couple of quick tips: the old rubbers are probably pretty dried out and rock hard. You're going to have to use a screwdriver and a hammer to probably chip it away and get it out. Now if you have a look down here, at the bottom of the frame, you'll see that it's been tapped in. There's usually a couple of these all the way along the frame. They did that from the factory to stop the rubber moving, so when it comes time to put them back in, make sure you bend these small notches back out of the frame, or you are going to struggle getting the rubber back in. So to start with, down the bottom here, these need to be undone. It's literally just going to undo this cover plate. Now underneath that cover plate should be a piece of spring steel like this. These do break, they get rusty, they snap. If you do have this particular pickup truck and this is broken, you can use an FXFJ Holden one. They are exactly the same, they're interchangeable. You can probably pick that up secondhand at a swap meet. So the key with these now is undo this. You're going to have to break all the rubber out because it's probably rock hard by now, and we'll go from there. Right, now that you've got your frames apart and they're ready to go, this particular customer, the frames have been re-chromed. We've gone ahead and put the new glass in. For the sake of time, I'm not going to show you how to do that in this video, but please jump on our YouTube channel. You will find how to fit the glass into the vent frames using the correct setting tape. Pretty straightforward, but we'll run through that later. Now, for these ones here, the rubbers themselves have a small tab down either side. That's going to have to get put in. As a general rule of thumb, look, we use this, it's a Worth brand rubber care. Rare Spares have got their product called Rubber Magic. As long as you're using some sort of lubricant just to help a little bit getting it into the frame. Look, soapy water is going to do the same thing with a bit of detergent in it. So we're just going to go ahead, we're going to spray this up, just to make it a little bit easier getting it in. You're just going to lay one side into the frame and then you're going to try and push and work along. I just use a small flathead screwdriver to help feed the beginning part of it in. It is a little bit time consuming, it's going to take you a few minutes, but as long as you are careful, it'll slide straight in without any dramas whatsoever. Take the time to do any rust repairs. They do trap the rust, they do get rusty in there, so take 5 minutes just to wire wheel it out and get into it, even if you've got to give it a coat of paint just to protect it again. So what you need to do, you need to lock both corners. Just move that out of your way. You need to lock both corners in first. Otherwise you're going to end up with it moving its way along when you don't want it to. Alright, almost. Alright, now that's in, we're just going to work our way along the length. So flip it over. And a lot of it you can actually push by hand. Any little spots that are blistering through there, just give it a light push. You can use a spatula, you can use a screwdriver, anything you've got. Just be careful, don't push too hard and rip anything, because you only get one shot at it. Just rolling that in there. Making sure that it lines up with our lock catch here. So now we're going to work our way up this way. Well, we've changed over to doing this. This is what we call a chisel stick, plastic chisel stick, nice and easy. If you do need them, we've got them. They're only about $10 to $15 each. It does make life easier. I did struggle a bit before because the frame was still pinched from the original rubber, so I've just had to go and undo that. Now as we're moving through here, we'll just lube that up again. With this one here, what we can do is just roll the rubber into the slot. So we just work our way along, kneading it in, and it makes life a lot easier. So just working one edge at a time, making sure that the back edge is rolled in. That then locks in there. Flip this over. Make sure that this back edge is fine. It's sitting in there nicely. We don't have any sections that have popped out. We can finish this last little section off just up here. You can see where it's being crimped still from the factory, so we'll have to push a little bit harder to get that in there. Once you're done, it is worth putting those small indentations back into the frame again so that the rubber can't wiggle its way along once it's back into the car and as the vent window is opening and closing. So that's now in there. They are designed to hang past 5mm, 6mm give or take, so that'll actually push up when your vent window is closed and it's got the post in there. It'll actually push into it and seal it nicely. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to get the frame. This particular customer's had them re-chromed. Now is where you've got to get some anti-seize lubricant. Take the time to use this. If you don't put it in there, it will rust out. You will end up with the windows binding and you may not be able to get them open. So if you come down here, we're just going to go and push this through the hole in the frame there. Alright, now that you've got the actual frame assembly sitting through the external assembly that bolts into the car, the next task is our pivot pin in the top. Now we do supply nice new stainless steel ones. In the back there is a recess in there. This will eventually flare open to hold it into the frame. With these we also supply a new fibre washer just to sit between the actual quarter vent inner and the quarter vent outer. So that's going to sit between there. And we're going to try and put the pin in. Now that pin, if you've had your frames re-chromed, you are going to have to drill the hole back out because it will be filled with the chrome. It uses a 13/64 inch hole because they are imperial still, so you've got to make sure you drill them back out. Now that will drop back through there. Line them up. Alright, we're through. Now there are special tools that you can buy to do these, to get that pin in and to actually flare the bottom. They are very expensive. What you can do, and most people will have at home, is just a centre punch. We've got a nice big one here. We'll show you how to do this. Right, so now we're going to need a second set of hands for this, just to hold the actual quarter vent window in place. As I said, you're going to need a decent size centre punch, don't get a little one. We're literally just going to hold that on there and we're going to now pin this over. Come down and have a look at this. You can actually see that the head is actually flared open now. So this is actually where we want to stop using the center punch. If we go any further, we're actually going to crack the top and it won't do its job. So the next thing we're going to do is rotate this around. And I'll get you to just tighten that one for us. And what we're going to do is we're just going to tighten this in the vise. Now, the vise will continue flaring evenly what the center punch had already started doing. So if you keep going there, nice and tight. A little bit more. Alright, we'll back that one off and we'll have a look. So as you can see now, it's got a nice flat head on it and that's locked that in place. So as we open and close, that fibre washer is protecting the two surfaces from grinding together, but it's nice and tight through there. We're now going to go through, we're going to fit the bottom catch down here. Now down the bottom here, this is where we're going to get plenty in there. Be liberal, it's not going to hurt it. The more the merrier. So open and close that the way it's going to be. Now we're going to grab these particular ones. They're a little bit rusty, but all in all they're actually quite alright. We'll just make sure we put plenty of the anti-seize in here. You can use the copper one. I like this particular one, it's got the graphite paste in it. You can use the copper one, it all works exactly the same. Now we're going to go and put that in there. Now we're just going to continue to put a bit of the anti-seize on here. This stuff is important, otherwise you're going to find that your frames are going to continue to bind over time. as they get a little bit of surface rust on them. That is available, as I mentioned earlier. FX, FJ, Holden are the same. It isn't uncommon for them to split through here as they are under a little bit of tension. That's literally just going to sit in place there. Top is that notch there. The bottom, that's actually stopping this pin going too far down. So as you line it up, that'll drop straight in. And we're just going to go finger tight on these ones. Making sure, by the way, you have your tapered star washer underneath. If you don't have them, you are going to need to put some Loctite on so that these don't work themselves loose once they're in the car, because otherwise you've got to redo the entire job from the beginning. Now, as you're doing these, work left to right evenly and don't do one more than the other. This is a case of going until you feel it start to nip itself, and you want to actually test it. That at the moment is too loose. You've got to remember, you're going to have these open at 110 kilometers an hour, and this is what's actually stopping your quarter vent window from closing itself as you're driving along, because it's keeping that under tension. So we'll check that again. Okay, that's nice and tight. That's not going to undo itself. It's got enough movement in it that it's not binding, but it's also not too loose, so it's going to close itself. Now, the next task are these pivots, the quarter vent lock pivots here. This particular customer's had them re-chromed. As you can see, there is a bit of surface rust on them because the acid has actually eaten away what was on there. That's all right, that's not a problem. The key is just to make sure that you test fit the lock to that spigot before you go too far. Typically, when these are re-chromed, they fill up. They're going to make it too tight. In the interest of time, we've gone through, we've already checked it. That's nice and tight, that's nice and loose through there, and it's not grabbing at all. Now, you're going to use some more of this anti-seize paste again. Let's get some of that out there. Now, we've just used this. This is nice and easy. We're just going to go ahead and wipe the entire inside of this. Be liberal, because this is the only thing that's going to stop your lock from binding, and it's not going to be 2 months, 6 months or 12 months. It'll be a couple of years from now, and these, at the time of us filming this, they are not replaceable. So we've got the spring. That's the other thing we've got to go through and do. So we're going to wipe this onto the spigot here, because it's going to do two things. A, it's going to actually hold the spring in place while we do this, but it's also going to allow it to slide. So we're going to go ahead and put this on. In the side here, they actually use a small, oftentimes a roll pin, or in this case, I don't know if you can see close enough there, it's actually got a knurled edge on the pin. Sometimes when you knock these out, they do end up burred or smoothed off and you can't reuse them. Just use a roll pin and cut it down to size, it'll work perfectly. So we're going to go and sit that on there. Spin this around. This might be a two-person job because the spring is putting a lot of tension on this. No, there we go. Okay, now we're down. So we're going to come through from the top and push that in. Now, here we go. Just going to tap that to start with so it holds in place. We've got the center punch. You can use a proper punch if you need to, just as long as you can drive that in just the last little bit. So as you can see in there, the pin's now all the way through. If I open that up, it's nice and smooth. There's absolutely no binding whatsoever. So that's going to be nice and smooth through there. As we close this, it locks perfectly. Now remember on these, when you are putting these back into the vehicle, underneath here there is one rivet in here from the factory. The other side, this needs to stay loose because you're going to need to lift the end up. There is a screw comes through from the top into that hole which holds this into the door frame itself. You don't see it once it's fitted, but you literally then just fold that, clip it back down, and that's finished. So you've now finished the task. It's pretty straightforward from there. Look, if you've got any questions, feel free to give us a call. We've run through this 1,000 times before, so we're here to help. Our phone number is 1300 442 000. Talk to you soon.